What is going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadski, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. So I want to make this video to kind of discuss a little bit further about Monkey D. Luffy, the brand new quick Luffy that will be dropping on the 14th of September as the start of the Egghead Final Phase Super Sugo Fest. Now, I get it, I'm with you guys in the fact that, you know, it's another Luffy, another celebration headlined by a Gear 5 Luffy. I'm also sick of it. I completely understand, and I'm with you guys. We don't like this. I'm sure there's fanboys of Luffy out there that are always loving this, but yeah, it does get, you know, quite boring, mundane, expectable, you know, the fact that they just do the same thing every single time. However, you remember, this is part one of the celebration. There is going to be more, so look forward to that. But I do want to make a video about Luffy because after giving it some thought, some of the stuff that this character is capable of doing, I think a lot of people, I don't know, some people have like a very, you know, bare bones look at things where they see the abilities and they say, oh yeah, that works with that unit, that makes sense. But we're going to do a bit of a deep dive because it goes a little bit deeper than that, and I do think that some of the synergies that this character has with some other characters that are pre-existing in this game are going to be quite good. And I do think that in the upcoming Super Boss Kizuna Clash, which will be coming later this month, this is going to be a kind of like a team that is going to be built around to take on one of the Super Boss fights. I can almost guarantee it. It makes so much sense for it to happen. So let's go ahead and break down exactly what's going on. So before we get into the synergies, we need to understand what Luffy actually does. So we're not going to go like line by line through everything, but there are some things that I wanted to point out that are going to be important for this video. Just mainly talking about the offensive style of things, and of course everything that we talk about in terms of offense, it is going to be partnered with some type of utility, so keep that in mind. So obviously, you know, Luffy does have some utility in Captain, in Special, but we're mainly looking at the offensive prowess of what this character is capable of outputting. So first of which, the line that I really don't care about is this. However, the fact that this Luffy has this particular ability is actually going to be important for a couple of characters that we'll be talking about towards the end. This obviously doesn't really matter, but this is more of like an activation condition for other characters. So the fact that he has this doesn't really help, but it's going to be important. The quick territory is obviously very good. I don't know if there are any other quick territory units in the game, but either way, we're mainly going to be talking about quick units in this video anyway, so this is going to help out with just doing more damage. If you have a full quick team, you just get 1.5 times more damage, which is obviously fantastic. And then of course the 4 times, or the 4.25 times orb boost, obviously also very, very good. Now, it isn't technically just a 4.25 times orb boost. As we kind of talked about in the video, when Luffy as a captain, if you have 4 more characters with the Egghead tag or Land of Wano, and your crew has an attack boost or an orb boost, does not apply to captain and crewmate ability effects, allows the crew's attack or orb boost to be enhanced up to 2 times, and then will enhance those attack or orb boosts by 1.2 times multiplier up to a max of 8 times. So that's quite incredible that this character is capable of doing that. Just any attack or orb boost that you have, so long as you are fulfilling the tag requirement, allows you to get a very significant buff to those attack and orb boosts. Now, it is a multiplicative buff, which is fantastic. When you're talking about the lower multipliers, like, you know, 2 times, 3 times boost, the actual 0.5 increase or a 0.25 increase are definitely more valuable. But once you get up to higher numbers, like we're talking 4x's and above, having a multiplicative on top of that is wild. The amount of damage you get on top of it is very, very good. So the orb boost that he provides is quite strong, and then of course if you do fulfill other tag requirements, he allows you to make type slots matching for 2 turns, which is interesting, and also giving you the 3.25 times chain boundary, so starting you off at a very high chain to get your damage ramping very quickly. So Luffy can already provide quite a lot of good stuff there, and then it goes even further than that with his Super Tandem, which we'll talk about just a sec, but the EX Super, allowing you to get super quick and super powerhouse. So if you run a full team of quick units that are also powerhouse, they are all getting enhanced. Being able to generate a guaranteed tandem slot to then trigger the Super Tandem ability could also be important, and the fact that the Super Tandem, the tandem slot is guaranteed through Super Block is also important, just guaranteeing it no matter what. And then it will also further buff your chain by 0.25, so that actually, I've got a little notepad written down here, so this actually goes up to a 3.5 chain boundary, which is quite good. And then the 2 times advantageous class effect. So we know that this has been a common thread in a lot of content where the enemy is weak to a certain class. If you bring that class, you do double damage. This essentially means if the enemy is weak to Powerhouse, you do 4 times amount of damage. So stacking all of these abilities on top of each other gets quite good. So let's start talking about some synergies, okay? Let's bring up the first character, which is going to be Boa Hancock. This was the first character that essentially everyone talked about in regards to like, oh my god, this character works perfectly with the Luffy. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. We have this Boa being a quick unit that is also powerhouse, so already great synergy there. And the fact that she has abilities focused on, like, if you have a Luffy, you know, it makes a lot of sense. Like, her super special needs 3 quick characters on the crew, and you need a Luffy. And obviously, makes a lot of sense. So with Boa, the interesting thing about her, in her captain ability, she does extend conditional boosts by 1 turn, which could be kind of important for other characters moving forward. And then her special ability, it has pretty good utility, but this effect here to buff quick striker and powerhouse characters' final tap damage, this is actually very, very good, especially when you counter in the fact that with Hancock's captain ability, up to 1 time per quest, if a Luffy, Sandersonia, or Marigold, important here, has to be a crewmate and uses a special, it will instantly max her special. So we don't know how it's going to work. Maybe use a Boa Hancock captain with a friend captain new Luffy and then another Luffy sub, something like that maybe, because there isn't really a Sandersonia or Marigold that you can actively use here to generate this ability to fully max her special. But just thinking just in theory, by being able to activate this special twice to get a 60% damage to final tap, is very good when we talk about the final tap character that we'll talk about very shortly. And then the 2.25 times conditional boost against paralyzed enemies if you fulfill the tag requirements of having Logia, Kuja, or Straw Hat. And of course, Luffy's a Straw Hat. You've got this Boa, which counts as the Kuja or the Logia, which means you need 2 other characters. The character we'll talk about in just a moment is going to fulfill one of these requirements anyway. It allows you to get double stacking conditional boosts for 1 turn. And ignores the debuff protection, gives paralysis guaranteed. Now, the awkward thing about Boa, though, I really don't like the way that this is designed, because what this means is that, let's say you activate another conditional boost first. When you activate Boa, it'll do everything in order. So it gives you the final tap, and then it says, oh, you get a conditional boost. But the problem is, if you already have a conditional boost, you can't get another one. So it goes line by line, it'll give you final tap, it'll say, hey, oh, you've already got a conditional boost, you can't get this. And then it will say, oh, okay, you fulfilled the tags, you get double stacking conditional boosts. So what this means is you actually have to activate Boa again in order to actually get this ability to work. It's so stupid, I don't like this. Like, this line really should have been at the top, because what it means is if you can only activate Boa once and you already have another conditional boost, then she just doesn't get her effect. So what it means is you have to activate Boa first, and then you activate some other secondary conditional boost in order for it to work. I don't remember off the top of my head if Nico Robin was the same thing, the Super Sugo one. Was she the same thing? If you're Captain Cerebral, you get the, okay, so her ability is different, where it actually will allow you to get the double stacking conditional boost first, and then it will apply the conditional boost. So this is the way it should be designed. I don't know if there is an issue with Hancock, or if that's just the way that they intended it to be, but yeah, very, very odd design in regards to her. And then for her super special, nothing really too crazy, but it does allow you to get resistance down against the opponent, which does give you more damage, and then also increases your conditional boosts by 0.25, which is another great damage increasing effect. So obviously, great synergies between the Hancock and the Luffy. And now let's move on to the next character here, which is going to be Frankie. So Frankie just came out with the Egghead Sugo Fest, and at face value, when you look at Frankie by himself in a vacuum, he doesn't seem that great. But when you're putting him in context with Luffy, Boa, and some other characters that may be talked about in this video, Frankie actually does get quite a lot better. So Frankie's captain ability, nothing really too crazy, I suppose. There could be some scenarios where his captain ability is useful, because if you fulfill these requirements of tags, when you tap on himself with a bomb or super bomb, you do remove 6 turns of damage threshold. We're not too sure on the gimmicks of upcoming content, but this could be important moving forward. And also, if you have the Egghead characters, he reduces bind duration by 3 turns, and makes your crew immune to blow away. So depending on the content and what happens, you can build your team more these tag focused, otherwise you more focus on Egghead. The fact that the Luffy character does have his captain ability, which is also focused on Straw Hats, Logias, Paramecias, but also has Egghead related stuff, it is going to be interesting to see what kind of team they intend. But at the end of the day, it goes back to the same thing about tags being like such a hamper on like how you actually build teams, because essentially if you don't have the very specific units with the very specific tags, your team is just bad. So I really don't like the design, but I'm just more of just talking about in theory. I think this is what they're trying to go for here. So let's move on, because his special ability for Frankie is quite interesting here, because the ability of Frankie, when you first launch the special, it does give you this effect for, you know, utility, but then here, a 3.25 times conditional boost against defense down enemies. Then it says if you have the right tags, you get the 13 turns of cooldown, and then you get the secondary special when you activate it again. So with Limit Break expansion, he goes down to 16, and then with 13 turns of cooldown, you have 3 turns remaining. So when you move on to the next stage, he'll still have 1 turn left on his cooldown. So either you have a support to give him cooldown, or there's another effect that allows him to receive cooldown to launch his special again. Because it is important that you activate the secondary special, because what it means is when you activate the first special, you'll get the conditional boost. Remember, we talked about Boa just before. Boa's captain ability makes conditional boost last an additional turn, which means that Frankie's buff will actually be a 3-turn conditional boost. But then, as we talked about earlier, if his conditional boost is first, Boa's special will not apply her condition, and you have to apply it again in order for this to work after the double stacking is applied. So yeah, really, really weird design. But the effective set target status, 1.75 times increased damage taken for free for Powerhouse and Free Spirit, obviously very, very good. And then interesting thing is the super special, because the super special is very, very difficult to launch. You can trigger it as a crewmate though, which is important. But the condition, you either need to be below 25% HP, which is very difficult to do. So either A, you have a special that can reduce your HP or a support, or B, the enemy will inflict a health cut when you enter the stage. One of those two things is possible. Or fulfilling the condition of this is really tough. So you've got like any of the Straw Hats, any of the Vegapunks, as well as Kuma. I think this is actually kind of tough to do if you're mainly just focusing on a quick Powerhouse squad. Obviously, we have the Kuma that just came out, that's going to be coming out alongside the Luffy, but this Kuma doesn't really work with Luffy like a ton. He does have some abilities, but this Kuma's not very good, is all I'm saying. The Kuma's not very good. But the effect of his special gives a final tap bonus by 40%. So we're already talking about using Boa twice, which gives a 60%, and then this allows it to be a 100% bonus for your next Free Spirit Powerhouse character, which is crazy, crazy good. And guaranteeing a Super Bomb slot on Frankie himself is also very, very important because of his final tap. His final tap is insane. So you need to have a G, a Bomb, or a Super Bomb slot when you are on the final stage, and it will just add 1 times damage dealt from your normal attacks from other Powerhouse characters this turn on top of the normal damage. So again, if you guys don't understand what this means, let's say, again, you do all taps with your 5 other characters and you do 1 billion damage, then when Frankie performs his final tap, Frankie applies his damage as per usual, but then your other 5 characters that attacked previously, if they were all Powerhouse and you did 1 billion damage, multiply it by 1, which is 1 billion, and that 1 billion damage is added on top of Frankie's damage. So let's say you do 1 billion, Frankie's attack does like, I don't know, 500 million or whatever, and then you basically just add an extra 1 billion onto Frankie's damage, which is essentially crazy. Like, this gives you essentially double damage. It is essentially double damage. And the cool thing about this actually goes through resilience buffs as well. It's a really, really crazy ability. It goes through normal attacks only. It just goes through a lot of stuff, but it's very tricky to trigger because you need a G, a Bomb, or a Super Bomb slot, which you can guarantee via using his super special. But in order to use his super special, you need a very specific team, or you need to be below 25%. But we'll talk about that in a moment, because there is a way to get around that as well. So there's obviously a lot of cool things going on between these 3 units, but it goes even deeper than that. So this character really hasn't seen a ton of play since the New Year's celebration, this Ace and Whitebeard, because we haven't really had a ton of characters that were quick and Powerhouse focused, but here we go. We have a new batch. Obviously, we have a new bunch of units that are also Powerhouse focused and they're quick focused. So this character comes into the fray. So let's go ahead and have a look and see what this character does. Not really focused on the captain ability because you're not going to use him as a captain. But when we have a look at some other abilities here, look at this switch effect here. So a little bit of utility on himself, but you get tap timing chain, 0.7 tap timing chain, allowing override for 1 turn, and then you fuse into the dual unit for 3 turns. And then of course you have the special ability when you're in your combined form, being able to remove attack down, applies a Powerhouse territory, which does stack with Luffy's quick territory. So you have a quick and a Powerhouse territory, both applying up to a 1.5 times damage bonus, which is crazy good. And then it says if you have an attack buff, or your crew has 5+ turns of additional damage when the special is activated. To go back to Luffy real quick, remember what we talked about. adds 80 times his attack and non-type bonus damage for 5 turns. So the fact that you have that condition on Luffy, this fulfills this, which adds 2.5 to the chain. Now, this is a little incorrect. It's actually 2.5 addition, not multiplication. But it's still a chain boost that stacks with Luffy's chain boundary that he provided with his special ability right here. So it's a 3.5, yeah, 3.25 and then 3.5 after the super special from Luffy. And then says if you have an attack up with an effect of 3x or more, you buff it up to 1.5, but if you don't have an attack boost, then he still provides a 4.5 times attack boost for 2 turns based on the number of specials used. If your crew has 8 plus specials used, you get the class change. With the class change, I don't think is going to be very important, but by this point, you've probably activated a 3 to 5 specials. You're probably in this range, and you could probably just activate this last, all things considered. You might be able to get it to a 4 times, but either way, remember, this multiplier of this special, if Luffy is your captain, he enhances it by 1.2, which is super, super good. Let's pull up the calculator real quick. So let's say you have the 3.75 to be conservative, 3.75 multiplied by 1.2, so Luffy makes it a 4.5 times buff, and it still allows you to buff it once more, which is really good. And then of course he has the super special as well. The super special, I don't think you're going to get. You need 3 of the following units. It's probably, you do have Boa Hancock, you do have Luffy. If you do fulfill one other unit, it does give a base attack boost, which is kind of like fine, I guess. It's nothing too crazy. Unfortunately, he does have Rush. I completely overlooked the fact that he has Rush. You need 2 of the following units. Luffy, and is Hancock still here? I don't think it is. No, okay, so that doesn't really help out. But either way, the fact that he has the rush is kind of interesting. The fact that you could potentially build around that. It does require to build your team very specifically. So I don't think it's going to be something that you can actively get. But still, the option is there. So this is just another character that can add a lot of damage via tap timing chain via the switch. You have the chain addition buff and a really good attack boost. Now we talked a little earlier about a very annoying condition on Frankie, but this is where Memories of Jinbei comes into it, because he also has a very, very interesting set of skills that does allow other characters to shine. So we have a look at Jinbei. Jinbei here, Captain doesn't really matter. The special here is important where is it? It mentions it here. If your crew has 3 turns or more of Rainbow Shield on your side of the team, Threshold damage reduction on your side of the team, or tap timing bonus damage, or multiplier override when the special is launched, which of course you can get via Luffy's special. If you have that, then it says enables your chain multiplicative buffs to be enhanced twice. An increased boost of 3 selected buffs in exchange reduces your crew's HP by 33% of your max per selected buff. So if the enemy does not have an ability to give you a health cut when you enter the final stage to enable, where's Frankie? To enable Frankie's abilities to activate, remember, as we talked about earlier, his super special requires you to be below 25%, then you can activate Jinbei after activating Luffy and all of your other buffs, and you can select a couple of buffs, reduce your crew by 33%, and then reduce it by 66% total to get you, very, very low, to get you to those low thresholds. Which will allow you to buff attack. You can buff orbs, color affinity, status attacks, or conditional boost, chain lock, chain addition, tap timing chain is quite cool, or buff base attack. Of course, you can get his special to launch again, technically. He'll have 13 turns. He does give himself 10 turns of cooldown if the Powerhouse or Free Spirit Captain uses a special, but you need to use his special after Luffy anyway, so unless if Luffy's the friend captain, potentially, I don't know. There's a lot of hoops you'll have to jump through, but the fact that you can have this Jinbei not only trigger effects to allow other abilities to work via Frankie, but I believe, yeah, he is a Straw Hat tag character. He is also a Land of Wano character, which can work with Luffy's abilities too. So I do think this makes a lot of sense moving forward. So we'll see how things go. I think that this Luffy does have a pretty interesting team being built around him at the moment. Again, I am annoyed the fact that it is another Luffy. I think we can all understand that, but the fact that there is like a team shaping up, and I do think that he's going to be a pretty strong character. But like most other Luffy characters, it's like, how long will he last in the quote-unquote meta of treasure cruise before he's pushed to the wayside when we have another Luffy legend that ends up being better, bigger and better than this guy? We'll have to wait and see. But let me know your thoughts and opinions about this one down below in the comment section. Hopefully you enjoyed this one, and if you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece treasure cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.